So I wasn't aware of those type of languages and, talking about depression or breakdown. During the time, I thought I was cursed. I was thinking, why do I keep getting all these struggles? Now I can honestly say I know what I want to do and be and how.
This week, we're talking to Dame Kelly Holmes, double Olympic gold medalist of Athens 2004. But she's also a motivational speaker, has her own charity, has built a couple more businesses, kept us fit during COVID lockdown, and has recently started her own startup. Which makes sense because Kelly cannot stand still. You notice straight away the enormous energy that she brings into our conversation. Kelly has spoken publicly before about how during the height of her athletic career, she was struggling with her mental well-being, depression, anxiety, self-harming, and not wanting to wake up to see the next day. Her life was very much informed by not showing weakness, fixing the physical stuff, but not addressing the emotional needs, not being able to even describe what's going on inside, let alone having somebody to talk to. We discuss how do you rebuild your life after reaching the top of your profession and how this affects all high performers, leaders in large corporations, entrepreneurs, as much as athletes. For Kelly, self-reflection and balance is key. Knowing who you are, checking in with yourself and finding the best way to make sure you're okay. Be it through exercise, meditation, or whatever else works for you. It should not be defined by the people around you. Unapologetic for being driven. Took some digesting, but it's all about respecting people's differences and making sure that the individual knows what matters. That's what's key. Nowadays, Kelly is also the co-founder of Alpha at Work, an app for well-being in the workplace, bringing everything together that she has experienced and learned through her life. Please meet Kelly.
This is Naked by the Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. Brought to you by Vladimir Skobrestinska and Nectarios Lolios. And remember to subscribe, follow, and rate Naked to help us share it with the world.
So, Dame Kelly Holmes, welcome. Welcome to Naked by the Future Farm.
Thank you very much for having me.
What a pleasure.
It's a pleasure and an honor.
Big time.
And just for our audience, we have permission to call you Kelly.
Absolutely.
Needless to introduce you, you've done so much in your time, but we're particularly interested, of course, because of what we do with the Future Farm, about your journey as a high-performance person who's been doing a variety of different things. And as we were looking at your career, there's the military career, there's the athlete career, but also then as a motivational speaker, somebody who started lots of businesses. So hopefully over the course of our conversation, we get to dig a little bit deeper about what are the things that you've experienced that are actually very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because also you've been very public about the struggles that you've had with your own mental and emotional well-being also. If we can just also go down that path and unpack a little bit about what was happening there.
Sure.
I'll jump in if you don't mind, Karis, because I like Kelly. So I was learning. I was sort of a novice about your journey. So if you take that with the humbleness and consequence.
That's nice sometimes, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it allowed me, hopefully, to also keep at sort of the fresh outsider perspective. So. Yeah. There's so much in there. But the question I was really curious to ask was about, you have went through such a different life experiences, and Nectarios named few, right? The military experience, then the top athlete, entrepreneur. And it's not like only the tech entrepreneur, and we'll talk about it later, but you also have the cafe and the hub. So you have those entrepreneurial, adventures out there. Mm-hmm. So how does this sort of comes together? What's your reflection on your journey there and the transitions?
I think fundamentally it's kind of going with what my outlook is generally, and what it always has been, about having passion around whatever it is that you want to do. So firstly, I always find there's something that I've got a passion about before I've kind of even, started on that journey, of course. And then there's always a purpose, kind of an outcome for it. So whatever I've done in life, firstly, you know, I've got some fire in my belly about it for whatever reason, then I have to have a purpose, like an outcome for what that product or company or you know, process that I'm taking is going towards. And then I suppose it just goes back down to the same things around, you know, being an athlete or in the army. You know, you prepare for something, you know, you have to put all the planning in and all the hard work, and, you know, and ultimately you want like a great performance, so you go on a great outcome. So I have this thing around, like passion, purpose, planning, preparation, and performance.
That's awesome to hear, actually. We just talked about it in our latest episode, which was that it makes a big difference when the entrepreneurs are driving it really from an intrinsic and motivation, right? So a deep. Yeah. Are you a gut person, the intuition, or is it coming from mind, the logic? Where does that, or is it both?
Probably a bit of both, to be honest. Yeah, because there's a lot of things, you know, as you go through life and as you get introduced to new areas of interest, and obviously your starting point is at zero, you know, because you don't necessarily have any background in that area, but you've got an interest about something. So you try and fit what your interest is around, like what it is you're trying to go. So for example, I know we'll speak about the tech later, but I don't have a tech background at all, but I know what I want the product to be because I know what the outcome is needed for, you know. So I know what I'm trying to achieve with an app, for example, in the health and wellbeing area for corporates, you know. So I know all of the content that I need to go in. I know how I want it delivered, how I want it to be projected to the individual, how I want to see them to see it, hear it, visualize it. So as long as I've got all that, then actually I don't need to do the doing, because, you know, you get the experts in that world doing it. Otherwise, I can't be the creative thinker and the driver. I think it's important that I have an element so I understand exactly what they're doing, because I want to make sure I know exactly what they're you know, what I've said has translated to their way of thinking as a tech guy or a developer. That's the first thing. So I need to have a bit of understanding. But ultimately, I think an entrepreneur is the driver, you know, the one with passion, the one with purpose, that kind of visualize it, sees it, and just wants it to be good.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Just described, when you said, well, I know that the thing I should be doing is being the creative person. So there's an element of self-awareness about where you can actually add value in that business, right? So this totally makes sense from a business perspective. But for us, it's also really interesting to see how important self-awareness is when it comes to the introspection, right? And you have a very publicly documented journey about having ups and downs with your overall emotional well-being. So if you cast a look back, and so when was the moment where for the first time you actually were very aware that something isn't right? So I'm actually struggling with something. Were there particular signals in your journey, because there were multiple peaks, right, or troughs, depending on how you look at it, where you actually experienced very intense challenges?
Yeah. But from an athlete's point of view, I knew exactly when kind of I'd hit rock bottom, because it was very evident. I had a massive breakdown and became a self-harmer in that one closed period of time. You know, wanting the floor to open up and not see the next day. You're in a really bad place. But I didn't recognise the build up to it enough. In reflection, I could probably think, yeah, no wonder why, because, you know, as a high performer trying to reach, you know, your dream, which was to be Olympic champion, and having the ups and downs that I had. So I'd always been top 3 in the world, multi-medalist, yet always fought through an injury or setback or an illness to get there. So you're just fighting. So in the moment that you're doing something, all you are blinkered on is getting to a chance. So anything that's hitting you, you're kind of dealing with it, but you're not taking account of it. So if I got an injury, I'd go and see a physio, but that physio would be focused so much on the injury, and I'd be focused so much on the injury because I need to get back running. Even though I'd be doing all the other training, I would never really think about the emotional impact it was having on me. Of course, I was in pain, but that's logic. You know, of course you're going to be in pain. So if they were hurting me, I'd probably be crying. But I wasn't really taking account that actually that injury was then, you know, kind of making me doubt my ability a little bit without doubting who I was, kind of thinking like, what if I don't get back, then what's going to happen? You know, you have all these other thoughts in your head. You don't want to show any weakness to opposition. You kind of don't want people to think that you're not going to get back to something, because then it becomes like a media, in my world, a media kind of exposure thing, to keep it all intact. So actually, the only thing you really articulate is that you've got an injury, pretty disappointed, you know, frustrated, but you're going to be back. You don't say, oh, I've been, you know, waking up every morning in tears because I'm worried about never ever achieving my dream, whether I'm ever going to run again, you know. So I think it was a build up over the years. I'd started getting injuries, 6 years before that, you know, stress fractures, ruptured cards, torn Achilles. Yet I'd been number one in the world, you know, fastest in the world. I'd been multi-medalist, like I say. And then at 33 years old, I clearly couldn't take it anymore.
So, you know, in the entrepreneurs world, which we know very well, we hear a lot when founders say, I cannot really speak to anybody. The investors, they have to show up. My team, I have to motivate. At home, I don't want to put the burden, so it's not necessarily safe for everybody. There are peers, so it's a competition a lot of times. I hear a little bit of that from you, but I want to check in. So how is it within the world of a top champion athlete? Is it the same? Did you have anybody to talk to through this experience?
No. So, well, I think there was a couple of things really. You know, back then, 2003, no one was, especially in the UK, no one was talking about mental health awareness. So I wasn't aware of those type of languages and, you know, talking about depression or breakdown. I'd never known anyone that had ever discussed that with me, and I'd never been part of that conversation. So it's very different in terms of knowledge, but in terms of you know, where people perceive you to be, which is very in line with entrepreneurs, people, you know, high level performers, or, you know, in big corporates. You know, it's quite isolated as well, because you're one person driving everybody else. You know, it's on your shoulders. You know, if you don't perform, other people around you, you know, are seen to be failures. You know, you've got a physio and a, you know, coach and all of that lot. You know, their careers are on the line in terms of, you know, the respect that they get. If an athlete's always injured or not performing to their best, and they go, well, what's your part in it? So, I mean, I had an experience. So I go around to lots of corporates, obviously doing motivational speaking. And I remember being in one really large company, and the CEO said, oh, you know, Dame Kelly Holmes, come and have a chat with me before. And I was there to do a mental health awareness talk in their organization, because they were very slow in, you know, pointing mental health first aiders and really kind of having a system in place that employees could come and speak. So I sat to him in the corridor, and he's asking me so many questions. I said, oh, no disrespect, but you're literally going to hear me waffling on for an hour. So I'd like to know a bit about you, because I was thinking, oh, God, I'm hearing my own voice again. So I said to him, oh, I'd love to know about you. And I said, you know, you've brought me in for this, but, you know, have you ever struggled? You know, you've got the weight on your shoulders. This is a massive company. I said, surely it must be lonely and isolating. And he literally started crying like there. We were on our own. And so I just said to him, you know, who do you go and speak to, or what do you do? He said, it's so hard because, of course, everyone's expecting you to be the voice and the strong one and the, you know, leader. And actually that person at the top is taking on every single stress and pressure, not only their own to be that best for themselves, to think like they can do that job, but also the responsibility underneath them. You know, and he had to leave that job. He went to live up in Scotland with his wife. He just said he had to take time out. And then he got his head together, got back, spoke to the organisation who understood the pressures, and he's back there now. But it was really an eye-opener to realise that that is happening all over. And I've obviously got to speak to so many since then. And I know, like, there's so many under pressure.
Wow. And it's interesting because you introduced words that we use a lot when we talk about our entrepreneurial community, like loneliness. So at the moment, our theme is imposter syndrome, for instance. And we talk with a lot of people who are at the top of the game and they think they don't deserve to be there, right?
Yeah.
Actually, related to that, when you won your 2 gold medals, right, which was, in the end, it was a bit of a surprise, right? Because you had this long history of injury and it was such a big thing. And me being Greek, it was in Athens, right? But was there also a moment afterwards where sort of I've been working for this all my life. I can't believe it's happened. Finally, I'm there. But also having an element of imposter syndrome going, do I deserve this? Or was this more like, I finally got what I deserve?
Yeah, I think in that scenario, it's finally got what I deserved. I didn't give up. I'd been dreaming since I was 14 of it. Yes, there was shock because I never, ever expected to win the 800 meters, hence the picture that's become famous in the UK with my eyes popping out my head because I was a complete shock. But I've dreamt since 14 of being Olympic 1500 meter champion. And, you can always say in hindsight, but during the time, like I thought I was cursed. I was thinking like, why do I keep getting all these struggles, but I was fighting. So I never gave up on anything, like literally some of the, I know we haven't got time for all of them, but some of the injuries I had were so severe, I could have been written off, but I just had the mindset to say, well, I know how to race. So as long as I can keep my body fit, strong, keep my mind strong at the time and transition the training from running into a pool and on a step or on a bike and a cross trainer and weights and circuit training, I know I can do it. So that was a massive mindset for me. So my ability was always there. So when I, kind of won, it was almost like, so
hell yeah, no,
like total shock the first thing, but then almost like this ton of weight came off my shoulders and it was almost like, okay, this must be why I've been fighting forever, because something better was going to come. If I had given up when I won the bronze medal in Sydney because I was only 6 weeks of running, the rest of it was in a gym because I had a 12 centimetre tear at the beginning of that year and everyone wrote me off. I was 30. Everyone says, there's no way you're getting to those games. And I did. And I was leading with 30 metres to go in the Olympic final. And I don't know, I think I got scared that I was in front. I couldn't believe I was in front, and that split second, that's it, it's over. But I got a bronze. But that could have been enough for me in a way, because I could have just said, I don't want the fight. But I just knew I could win. I don't know why. It's hard. Everyone, when you have passion about something, those people that have made it big have normally gone through something, but they just inside just feel that that's where they should be going. And that's why, you can hear so many people's stories of, hardship or fight or determination or setbacks, barriers, loss, financial, whatever, and they start again and they believe in themselves. And then like the story that they tell is like so fantastic. And then you go, well, how did you do that? Well, maybe it's fate a little bit as well.
Yeah, we sort of use the words like being resilient or anti-fragile even, so that you sort of evolve through it. How do you define success for yourself? Or if you can reflect, I'm curious during your athlete's life chapter, how does an athlete define a success? Is it about the medals or is there something else?
Yeah, it really depends. And I think everyone would answer very differently. My success was being an Olympic champion, however, that was the ultimate success. But every year it would become something different. So it might be getting a personal best time because, I was trying to break a British record. And, when that's significant for your event and your life, that if you break that British record, that really catapults you up, because my British record was stood for 12 years. And it was like, world-class time. So for me, breaking that for me was just like amazing. So it's almost like success for an athlete is broken down depending on where you are in your journey and what you ultimately believe you can achieve. So it could be for some just getting the British vest, or the country's vest and representing your country. For that could be the most successful thing they've ever fought, because they'd, realistically know that's as far as they're ever going to get. And that was their fight. Whereas for me, every year would have been something very different. So, a success of, like I say, getting a medal when everyone was telling me I wasn't even going to get to the championship would have been a success. It wouldn't have been my ultimate goal and dream, because it would have always been to stand on top of the rostrum. But I would have made sure that each point had something that I was driving for, so that I could be realistic about the outcome. You know,
that resonates.
There's no point in me saying I can definitely win that gold medal when, you know, I'm not training for the last 2 weeks of a championship, which is the most vital 2 weeks of an athlete. Yet in your head, you know, you're one of the world's best, but a little setback kind of almost give you a little bit realism. Okay, I can definitely medal. But you don't then go, oh, I'm going to stand on top of the rostrum, because you have to have every other bit, don't you? You have to have confidence in your ability. You have to have known that the plans and preparation have gone really well, and how you strategize them. They're kind of like you've ticked all the boxes that you believe gives you the outcome, you know, because sport. And the other thing that's very different in sport and business is sport's black and white. You know, you win, you lose. Business has a few more variables of what's means success, you know.
Yeah, hence the question, really, because I do remember this story. Ted Turner said the story that when who is the founder of CNN and many other businesses, very sort of well-known, recognized. And he once said the story that he was climbing a ladder in his life, and there was a back at the top of that hill, and he was walking towards getting the back. And when he climbed the hill, opened the back, it was empty. So I was wondering, you know, sort of in reflection of that, when I was just trying to understand the gold medals or the world record, what happens in that moment? And you sort of shared a little bit around now is the moment. I worked hard for this, right? I do deserve this. What else is happening there?
Well, say like I suppose after winning the gold medals, like in Athens, there was firstly it was oh my God, I've done it. It's like, you know, kind of the realization that you've done it is massive, as well as the pinch me moments. Like, am I still going to start? You know, I remember coming back home and to the UK, and even 3 months later, you know, it's still a bit mad, because I was the first woman ever to win 2 gold medals at any one games. And, you know, I said to my mum, can you like just pinch me? Because have I actually done this? I felt like I was going to wake up, you know, and still be on the start line. It was surreal. That's probably the word. It was surreal. When you've worked so hard for something, you don't put yourself in the position of what it's going to feel like when you've done it. So when you've actually done it, when it's that big, it's sort of like, what am I now meant to feel like? You know, of course, it was just most amazing feeling, the opportunities I got, but equally that bit almost was just a world that you can't ever envisage, you know, and a process you can't envision. After that, then you start to think to yourself, okay, who am I now? Because once you've reached the top, that you've only focused about the top, you haven't focused on over the top, you haven't focused on behind that mountain as you just described it. You don't focus on that bit, you only focus on getting to the top of the mountain. When you get, and then you're going the opposite side, it's like, well, what's this world? You know, I have no idea now, because now all my dreams have gone, all my aspirations, my fight, my structured life, my environment that I've known every minute of the day is now gone, because now I don't know what I'm going for. That side of it is, I think, the hardest side. You know, even it was hard getting to the top of the mountain, it's harder to compute the next stage, because do you build another mountain? What's that mountain going to be? Do you start from the hill and look ahead and think, okay, this is where I'm going? But if you don't know where you're going, then what? So then you have all these variables in your mind about who you are. You question, you know, yourself again. You then question your ability to be somebody different, to reshape and reform yourself. And that's what I've had to do the last sort of 15 years.
Well, you kind of introduced another concept, right? Because you actually said, who am I after this, right? So it's all about identity.
Mm.
And we've noticed this a lot with entrepreneurs is that they are the business and the business is them. And our very first guest on the podcast did actually say verbatim, it's like, well, if I no longer follow this cosmic mission, who am I, right? And because he decided to step back and walk away and go corporate. But it is a really interesting one because it really kind of, no matter how much achievement you had in your life, and you kind of talked about your confidence, it's sort of, if you start something new, right, how do you translate the achievements? And because if it's starting from the bottom, I'm sure it comes with all the insecurities and the questions. And you've done this now a few times, right?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like I'm in many lives. I'm a cat. Just hope I'm getting to the end yet.
But it's very inspirational, for a lot of people, because as Nataris is describing, this is indeed what we keep hearing and even ourselves really experiencing, is their rebuild, reboot. So how do you navigate this? What happened after you climbed that mountain in the athletic world?
Yeah.
How did you support yourself in that? What you said, you have to ask yourself the big question.
Yeah. So it took a long time to reframe my mindset, to not just think that all I have in life is one massive goal and then I go only for that, because that's all I've done. So when I was 14, I wanted to be in the army as a physical training instructor, and I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I joined the army when I was 17, became a physical training instructor when I was 21, left when I was 27 to pursue my athletics career, won 2 gold medals at 34. Like, what I've been doing for 20 years, like that's what I've known. So how do I then suddenly go, oh, now I want to be? It's so hard, so you have to reframe who you are. So some of what's happened, I suppose, I'd probably say the last 3 years, I've changed and learned the most about myself, which I'll come to in a minute. Like now I can honestly say I know what I want to do and be and how. But that period up to it was very, I was going up and down with emotions. I find something that I'm passionate about, I put all my energy into it, and then realize it's not fulfilling the void. I just do it because I feel like I have to put my mind into something because that's how I've always been. But it wasn't as big or as rewarding as fulfilling. The other two things. So when I've built it, I still put exactly the same heart and mind and effort in, but the reward's not the same in terms of the feeling. So I was national school. I was like, when I first retired, so one of our prime ministers, Gordon Brown, came into power. And on his first day of being in the power, I met him at a charity event. And I just thought, okay, and I don't know why, I just thought, right, I've got to find an opportunity here to speak to him. So I just said, oh, Prime Minister, congratulations. I'd love to come and speak to you. I've got an idea. I had no idea. I don't even know where it came out of my mouth, because I'm not like the most, I am like confident in everything I do when I do it, but I'm not the kind of, look at me person, so I just thought, I'll just do it. And anyway, he said, come to my office tomorrow. And I'm thinking, I've got to come up with an idea between today and tomorrow, what I want to speak to about. So I just thought to myself, okay, overnight, okay, what can I do? What is the biggest power I've got at the moment is inspiring young people. Because I just won 2 gold medals, just retired. Everybody knew me. Okay, so I want to be national school sport champion. I want you to fly me all over the country. I want to inspire the next generation to believe in themselves through sport, because that's how I started, my PE teacher telling me I could be good at something. So he said, yes, love it. And that was it. 3 years, I was national school sport champion, traveling around the country, just inspiring people and things. Then during that time, I suddenly thought to myself, and it's all again starts with a passion, is that I wasn't getting to see areas that really needed support. Like I was going to all the areas in the schools that had the financial backing, that had brilliant facilities, and the kids were loving life and sport. And I was like, well, what about all the ones that are left out? There must be areas of deprivation, areas that actually, if I go in there and talk to them, they could be the next thing. So anyway, I just thought, right, I'm going to start a charity then, because I'd start it, because I knew again, because I'd been into charity since I was 16, that I could make a difference to people's lives, because my PE teacher made a massive difference for mine, believing in me. So I started my charity from nothing, like literally from scratch. And I decided that I wanted to help children of areas of deprivation become somebody through purpose. At the same time, you asked me about this transition bit. There were so many athletes that had put on the same amount of time, effort, years, who had nothing, no platform whatsoever, completely depressed, loss of identity, loss of personality, loss of any direction whatsoever. And I thought, I've got to use the platform I have to help them. So then it was transitioning athletes. So I then, that's now 13 years old, my charity, 400,000 plus young people we've helped, and 750 athletes transitioned. Love it. I was chairing the board. I didn't know how to chair a board. I mean, like, who teaches these things? But it was my charity. I thought, I've got to control it. So I chaired a board with, 10 board members for 8 years, stood down because people were talking about this word, good governance, looked into that. And it's like, don't hang on to something when other people can do better. I thought, okay, so I'll stand down now. I'm president. I was just winging it. I was just literally learning on the job and learning things that I thought, okay. And then I suddenly just sort of had this thing of, I need to find things that, like, that was great. I loved it. And I do love it, of course, my charity. I'm so proud of it. Probably one of the proudest things I've done. But it was almost like, so what's the next thing? And I keep trying to always find the next thing, which people like me is like driven. You either can just go, okay, I'm going to chill out now and do nothing. But like, I don't want to, I want to still learn and thrive. So the past 3 years have been the biggest change for me, because my mother passed away, which like literally tore my heart apart. And I thought, she hasn't got another day to live. I want to live like till 100, because I want to keep learning. I want to stay young. I want to whatever. And I thought, okay, so I've got to do more things. So I'd already started the coffee house that I said you mentioned. And that was from, I was into property, right? So 6 years ago, I'd already done property. I'd flipped about 3 houses. Then this property came up for sale in my hometown. I live in a little village. And when I was a young girl, I'd said to the owner, because I used to be a paper round girl and work behind the till, I'm going to own this building one day. I had no idea. I mean, like, what was I going to do with a building? Anyway, it stayed in my head forever. This building then came up. Someone said to me, oh, that building's for sale that you've always wanted. Are you going to get it? And I was like, if only it's too late. If I don't get it now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life, because I'll be thinking, why did I want it so badly? Then I see somebody else do something. I drive past it every day and go, oh, that could have been me. I thought, no, I'm never going to have it, if only. So I bought the blooming building. It was derelict, like literally derelict building. And then I thought, okay, I've got to make this into the best building. Like, it's got to look brilliant, right? And this is where my skills, this is the bit, is how do you find your transferable skills with what you've learned in your life? How do you bring a team of people together? How do you have vision and purpose and passion? I had a passion for bringing something to my village that was going to help my community get together, speak to each other, just, love it. Okay. Then it was like, okay, that's my purpose. My passion was in property. Okay, it's got to be the best building. I got a project developer guy. He was rubbish. He was asking me questions every day. I was like, you're wasting my time. I'm paying you all this money, but you keep asking me. I'm going to take it on myself. So I decided to be the bloody commercial property developer. Like, literally, I had a team of people, and this is the final bit, but it answers your question around the communication, is how did I get the skills to build, which became awarded Building of the Year, right? Why? Because I used the skills as an athlete, first and foremost, which was, how do you become an Olympic champion? You become it for a few reasons. You've got a dream, a passion, and outcome. You get the best team around you that have a responsibility in the role that they have to play to make you as the person, the best person. If that was a business, it's like everybody in all of their different departments have to do their job blooming brilliant for that business to actually keep thriving. It's exactly the same as an athlete. So I transitioned that into the property world with the architect, the structural engineer, the builder, the painter, the decorator, because I was like, you're not communicating. It was terrible. Like the build, I was spending so much money. They weren't communicating. All the numbers were coming wrong. I emailed them and I said, look, this is how I became Olympic champion, because I asked every single one of those teams to have the same passion as me, to see this building be the best building. So every time somebody walks in their door, they love it. They wrote back to me and says, oh, I've never, ever got a letter like that from somebody putting it in that way. I said, you're a team. Yes, you've got a role to play, but come together. I literally was going mad. And that's how I've now done things in life. Bring the people together, look at my skills, have the passion, do it.
Yeah.
Deep breath. That was a lot.
Well, because sometimes it's so hard to ask.
No, it comes across, the passion.
Yeah, amazing. Let's talk a little bit about how you the strengths to do this, because you are so vocal about your own mental and emotional well-being, right? Because everything you described surely comes also with the moments of questioning and the moments of doubt, because it's a bit of a yin and yang thing, right? Yeah. When you started experiencing the first kind of challenges, but also it's been like a consistent thing that you talk about, right? What are the tools that you use to actually come out of it again? Is there a particular kind of practice, technique, routine that you apply?
So self-reflection, sometimes I sit down and just think, was I happy about what I'd done? Could I feel good about, where I've gone? I also do, I've started to do very recently, meditation in the morning, just to get a bit of me time, because I'm like a lot of people, juggling balls and spinning plates, like literally. I don't know, sometimes you think, like, you question yourself, how am I keeping these up? Other people question, you're doing too much, why are you doing it? But it's hard to let one fall, because then you think that one that you fall could have been the one that was good, So, and again, that's in my mind. So I then have to go, okay, if I will get too wound up and stressed and tired and anxious and worried that things aren't going to go well. So I have to take a little step back. So I've done that by taking sort of just 10 minutes of meditation, which I never thought I could ever do because my brain's going too much, but just to kind of create a bit of me time. I do that by keeping fit. I have a fitness brand, and, I, from a very low level as a personal trainer, I take classes. And people say to me, why are you taking classes that people are paying like £5-10 for? It's like, because I love it and it gives me. That's my background, being a PTI. I love helping people, watching people, getting the best out of them. That for me is kind of therapeutic. When I can give back to people, help them succeed, that for me is something that makes me feel good. Then I can carry on. So I do fitness, meditation, and a bit of reflection. It's not always easy, and actually not every day, even though I'm a Duracell battery, not every day is great, because I question, sometimes I think I'm doing things and I think this is going to be another one of those, and putting everything into it because of the passion and the heart. And I'm not looking at wider. I'm not looking at myself going, stop, this isn't going anywhere. Because I've always been so like this. Once I get hold of something, I'm going to make it happen. It's like that, regardless of what people are telling me. It's almost like I let them go over my head. But recently I've tried to do the stop and go, is this right? Is this right for you? And is this going to actually be what you want it to be later on? Or are you going to look back 2 years and go, I shouldn't have done that? And I feel like I haven't got the, I say time because I don't like age, but I literally don't want to waste 2 years on something. I want 2 years to build something brilliant, if you know what I mean. So I'm taking a step back a little bit.
Yeah. While you were, sorry, Nick.
Cover it.
Yeah. This happens again a lot to us, that we have like many questions. But I was just thinking, because what you are actually describing, so I think like in one part of me completely resonates with this, where you're saying have the blinders, have the determination, see the end, and just go run, right?
Yeah.
Part of me is like sort of I'm feeling the energy, which is like, where's the nurturing part, the balancing part, the kind part to yourself, right? What you are saying. So how do you look at it today? And you sort of nudged it a little bit, because we hear this a lot in the entrepreneur space. Is like, there is one way to make it, make the success, to reach the hill, etc. But we are now questioning that, like, there is a different way to this.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, because of course everyone says about balance, but I always think there's an imbalance with people that want to be driven. I think there's nothing wrong. I spoke to a guy called Eddie Izzard, who's a stand-up comedian. Oh, like, he's just the most amazing guy.
Amazing.
He's doing films, stars in the films, directs the films. He's like everything, writes his comedy acts. And he said to me, I said to him once, I said, I've been hearing, I was on it was my podcast. And I said to him, I've read up a little bit on you just before I came. I didn't want to do too much. I said, but it says about, you don't care that you haven't got many friends and that you don't socialize loads and all that. And I said, do people question you? And, you say, why don't you just have time out? He says, I'm unapologetic for being driven. He said, it's my life. This is how I like to lead it. This is what I want to do. And I'm not going to say sorry to anyone. And you know what? It really resonated with me, because I think whilst we talk about balance, what's the balance? My balance is I'll have a non-negotiable Saturday off. I do nothing on a Saturday. I will not work on a Saturday. I will play with my alpacas, my weird animals in the garden. I will wear my pajamas and my fluffy socks. I'll eat Indian chocolate, gin, I'll do whatever, watch movies, don't care. I won't work on a Saturday. That's my time off. I'm happy that I've given myself a day. There's no chance I'll work on a Saturday, if you know what I mean. My balance is I work so hard during the week that Saturdays I love it. I'm probably half knackered, it goes too quick. It goes far too quick. But that's my bit. Plus exercise. I went for a run just before I came here. I took a session at 7:00 this morning. Those bits I enjoy. I love it. Before I even started doing my emails, I did that. So I get my balance by thinking, what is it I love? What bits do I enjoy? And I'll make sure I put them in. That's my balance. Other people will have other things that, they're not going to work in the evenings. They're not going to whatever. But you can't really dictate one way of being, because we're all so very different in our background, our history, what we're going for, our starting point, our end point, where we are on our mountain. We're all so different, aren't we?
Yeah.
But
so
it's good to hear. But it's also good to hear that what you just described shows a fair amount of self-awareness, right? So you've done the work, you know what matters to you, and you also draw your boundaries, right? Because we also see a lot of people who haven't gone through that path, haven't gone through the journey, and therefore do not know that they need a non-negotiable Saturday. Mm-hmm. They don't know that they need that routine of, I do my exercise in the morning because it's good for me. And it's really helpful to hear that, and maybe reframe it a little bit and say, in what you described is actually balanced, because you know what you need. Because if you didn't have that Saturday, you wouldn't be able to do the rest of the other 6 days, right?
Exactly. I think it is important that people, I think if you understand what your own priorities are, first of all, for your life, then for the life that you lead with maybe others, because what I think gets messed up when people go, so I don't have children of my own. So, of course, I can pretty much what I want. I have 10 nieces and nephews, and, I speak to my family and that. I'm like, I don't know how you fit that in. There's no way I could fit in children. I just go into that mold. And then I go into the whole thing of, well, that means we're all so very different. And people that have family kind of get a little bit more anxious with their lives as well, because I think, I've got to do this, and I've got to be a husband or a wife or a mother or father or whatever. But firstly, I think people forget the perspective of you're waking up every day to also live your life. Okay, so what also matters to you? Yes, there might be a family balance area there. So then make that a priority within your life. It might be that work is your priority and that's what makes you tick and wake up every morning and be motivated. That's your priority. No one should say it shouldn't be that way. So I think it's like, what's your own priority as a person, first and foremost, as you, the person that woke up that morning? And then what else matters to you? Bring those into your life. Anything that doesn't matter is not your priority. You probably shouldn't be looking at. That's the way you take the balance.
Yeah. And the pillars are, sorry, and I want to ask this, is that the pillars needs to be the foundation, I think, of what you're saying, Kelly. Like, ask yourself that question, find it, dig deep. They need to be very strong, because what we also see is that, yes, there is the pressure from the family and maybe your friends and how they live their lives. But we see so much also coming, let's say, from the media, the entrepreneurial world, like see all those Forbes covers and this whole narrative. And to be honest, they dictate how you are supposed to live and what type of an entrepreneur life should look like. So hence, I think this message around answer that question for yourself and whatever that looks like for you and for your team, right? Because then the conversation expands. It's super important. Sorry, Nectaris, it felt important.
That's right. I thought, because I'm also mindful of time, it's interesting that in all this conversation about your journey, when we were introduced with you as a startup entrepreneur, as a startup founder, as a tech entrepreneur, right? So that was quite an interesting thing, but it's also all falls into place because you described that your practice now is ultimately a combination of mindfulness, reflection, exercise. So you are also the founder of a startup called Elf. Right? Yes. And do you want to tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, sure. So Elf evolved from, I was going around the world being a motivational speaker, and I've always talked about 5 elements of well-being: mental health, motivation, fitness, nutrition, and mindfulness. And within there's lots of other pieces, but I always talk about those 5 elements for a well-rounded person, because at any stage during your day, during your life, one of those becomes more important, less important, or all of them are part of you. So whilst I was talking about this, I was thinking, okay, I'm the stardust, you've got me in, I've done the talk, but then what are you applying? What are you actually doing? Because especially through last year, is very evident the need to support employees in the workplace because of the disruption that we've all had, the lives that have changed, and the well-being and especially mental health of people has declined as a whole. And so ALF was formed before I started 2-3 years ago now, actually, the development side, to bring an all-rounded platform to the employees. So we all live on our phones and our computers. It's just basically an app that has all those 5 elements in, very interactive, visual, audio, articles, and it just gives every single those elements that I've always believed in as a all-round for a person. It's just so it's a connection tool and then a self-help tool, but also a responsibility for corporates to look after, because the amount of money they waste on absenteeism, presenteeism, health-related issues and mental health issues is huge. And so for a very minimal amount of money, they can say they were bringing a tool that's white labeled into it. So for me, it's like same principles as the army, bringing a team together. How do you build purpose? Same in athletics, same in my cafe. How do I build the right team who I trust, who trust me to become like, and I'll have the vision. You'll never knock back somebody who's got a winning mentality. I'll be the driver. I just need the team who believe in it to help me. And that's where I look now to do that.
It's pretty cool to hear from a Olympic, medalist to say MVP.
I know, right?
Super refreshing.
I've had to learn.
Yeah, but it's just about the freshness and the richness of life that one can have.
You learn every day. I always literally say, and at the end of my day, I just go, what have I learned today? And I'll always learn something in that day. I'll listen, read, go online. If somebody's said something and I have no idea what that word is, I'll Google it and I'll find out.
Awesome.
Wonderful. I think this is a good point to end, Kelly. So this was wonderful for us. Thank you so much for making the time. We hope it was okay for you.
Yeah, no, it's great. I should probably just tell you the Army leadership code, the values is courage, discipline, respect, integrity, loyalty, and they have one more, which is selfless commitment. But in the real world, you're not going to die for somebody. So commitment is the word. And those values I'll uphold in everything. And I think that's what leadership is about, having those values. So that's where that comes from for me.
Awesome.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I was exactly thinking that it's applicable to anything you do in life, how we live life. So
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Such a pleasure, Kelly.
It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll get something out of that.
Join us next week to reflect and digest. You've been listening to Naked by The Future Farm, where entrepreneurship is stripped to its vulnerable core. To learn more about our work, sign up to our newsletter or visit thefuturefarm.co, where you can also apply to be a Naked guest. Naked is produced by Dan Turgel and edited by Catherine Dworkin. And remember, subscribe, follow and rate Naked to help share it with the world.